There's a landmark case going on. You guys probably didn't hear about it. And it involves a Texas company, Plano-based Cinemark Theaters. This was the theater chain where James Holmes went on his shooting spree in Colorado, killing 12 people and wounding 70 others at a screening of Batman that night. And the lawsuit goes something like this. Because Cinemark did not provide proper security, they're going to sue Cinemark in a civil trial. Let's talk about this with a brand new member of the Chris Salcedo Show Legal Eagle team, Loretta Powers, native of Denton, Texas. That's up in North Texas, folks. She earned a Juris Doctorate from what is now Texas A&M School of Law in Fort Worth. Loretta also holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in economics from the University of North Texas. She is with the law firm, the law offices of Tim Powers. Loretta, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so let's boil this down. In my view, if this goes the wrong way, it's tantamount to suing gun manufacturers for the use of their product, or pencil manufacturers because somebody writes slanderous material on a piece of paper with a pencil. Thus, the pencil company is liable. This is a civil case. I know it's not criminal, but tell me the implications of whichever way this goes.
Well, there's one main issue, and seriously, without this issue, this case would not be in court today, and that is the emergency exit alarm. If the emergency exit door alarm was working, the judge would have thrown out this case during summary judgment. And summary judgment is when the judge says, even if everything that the plaintiff alleges is true, there's no case here. I'm throwing it out. Thanks for wasting everyone's time. Mm-hmm. But because the shooter was able to prop the door open without so much of a sound, he was able to go back and forth to get more weapons. And having the alarm go off would have alerted moviegoers that something was amiss. And it would have reduced the number of injuries and casualties. And it's going to come into evidence how long the door alarm was broken and whether or not the theater knew about it. And whether or not the shooter tampered with it. And so depending on those factors, the jury will likely show that the theater is partially responsible.
Yeah, no armed guards was brought up in this case, no security cameras monitoring the backside of the complex, and no alarms on its exit doors. Now, that was what was written up there in the, I think it was the Denver Post. But you're saying it wasn't exactly the fact that no alarms existed, it's the fact that the alarms that did exist didn't go off.
Absolutely. And there is also an issue of whether or not the patrons would be willing to pay for an extra cost of the metal detectors. You know, would we actually be safer if all movie theaters had metal detectors like we do in sporting events or public offices? But to be honest, I really don't feel safer walking through a metal detector. I mean, you could 3D print a plastic gun nowadays.
Well, no kidding. So these other things that were mentioned in this lawsuit, the security cameras, the monitoring, the off-duty armed guards, perimeter patrols, all that stuff is tangential. You think that the main focus will be on the alarms on the doors?
Yes, and it's also whether or not this whole thing was foreseeable. I mean, the defense is going to argue that this was a horrific accident and there was nothing that it could do. And they'll say that the emergency exit alarm being broken and the lack of increased security for the major movie premiere was not the proximate cause of the moviegoers' injuries. But if I were on a jury, I would say that in this day and age, there's a mass shooting every month, and therefore it is foreseeable. I mean, that's the world that we live in today.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that businesses should be vigilant to make sure that the safety measures that are already in place, like the alarm system, should be implemented and working.
She's with the law offices of Tim Powers. Loretta Powers, my guest right now. So my worry is if the defendants get a favorable judgment in this case, that again, it opens up this can of worms that gun manufacturers can be held responsible for their products, pencil manufacturers or ink distributors and paper manufacturers can be held responsible. Do you think that if there is a favorable ruling in the case for the defendants here, that it will be a narrow enough decision to prevent that slippery slope from happening, or will it just depend on what this judge decides he wants to do?
I mean, even if the jury finds Cinemark liable, the damages award will be greatly reduced in the appellate court because the appellate courts, they're not as sympathetic as juries, and they'll likely say that it wasn't foreseeable. I mean, it's about as foreseeable as somebody carrying a plain package that actually holds fireworks, and that package injures a woman standing hundreds of feet away. And that's what happened in the Paulsgraf case. That establishes the foreseeability doctrine of negligence over 100 years ago.
Right.
And
okay, no, I get what you mean by that, but this, you understand my angst about this and what this could mean if it goes off the rails.
Right, and there was a Homeland Security memo that didn't make it into evidence. It said that international terrorists were targeting movie theaters, and I don't think that having that into evidence would have truly made a difference. I mean, no movie theater added increased security because of it. It's like Chicken Little saying that the sky is falling.
Right.
But because there wasn't anything specific about it, it's just a general warning, which no reasonable person could act. So I don't think that they're going to go after the gun manufacturers.
When is this going to happen? Has this already happened, or are they?
Yes, they already picked the jurors. There's going to be 6 jurors and 2 alternates, and the case is going to take 3 weeks.
3 weeks. All right. Well, I know we'll probably get you back on once the ruling comes down. So keep us appraised, will you, please? Loretta Powers.
Absolutely.
Everybody. She is the law firm of Tim Powers up there in North Texas. Appreciate you being here on the Chris Salcedo Show. We'll talk again. Your calls on the other side of the break. Plus, I got to get you this story.